Hey fellas. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm painting the wheels, and I've got the wheels, I primed them in gray, and then I went back with a white primer and I just sprayed the front and the back of the wheel white. And this is what we're trying to replicate here. How I normally do this, instead of masking stuff off, what I like to do is I'll use a little bit of Tamiya thinner and a little bit of the Tamiya paint retarder for acrylics. And this just slows down the drying time. You don't want to put too much. That'll probably be enough right there. Just one little drop. Then I'm going to take my Tamiya Rubber Black XF85. And I want this pretty thin. And again, Tamiya is one of those difficult paints to hand brush with. But this has seemed to work out pretty well. As you can see, I've got these on toothpicks. I'll just take my tire and I'll get this, and there's a little ridge right along the edge, and I'm just gonna let this flow up against that ridge, and it's almost like a wash, and it's real thin. It's just gonna flow around that edge. I don't want to get too much because I don't want it to go over that ridge. And this is going to give me a nice demarcation line where the wheel meets the tire. And because it's so thin, it's not going to cover real well. So you just come back, keep doing it. Till you get that color in there. And again, I'm of the opinion you don't have to totally make it completely black. And it's kind of hard to tell in these pictures, you know, but there's some variation in the color of tires, especially ones that have been out there and in service. So it's okay if it's not all even. Kind of helps with that rubbery look. Got something in there. Ugh. Get out of there, you hair. What I've done now, and I did a little other detail painting, and I added the decal. I don't know if we can get this to focus. Here we go. Added the decal there on the center part. Now what I'm going to do, or what I've done, is I've masked off to kind of simulate tire tread, and I'm going to take my rubber black mixed with some white, and I'm going to airbrush just around the tread of the tire, so I can get, and then when I pull the mask up, it'll look like that portion of the tire has been in contact with the concrete or whatever. And you kind of get that lighter shade there on the tread of the tire. All right. Now that I've got these done, I'm going to finish painting the back of the tire, or the back of the wheel. And then I'll put a clear coat on it and then hit it with some washes. Down in these holes, I want to get some black oil paint. And I think it's easier if I can just get some black oil paint down in there and then wipe off the top and leave the oil paint down in those holes. So that's where we're at, and I'll flash up some pictures when I'm done with them, and you can see how they turned out. Something I've always found to be a challenge with painting an F15 is masking off and painting the metallic areas around the exhaust. Now, it's the metallic area is going to run right along here, along these, the part of the tail, and then a section up here as well as along the bottom of the vertical stabilizers. Now, what I've done in the past is I've painted the model and then masked off and then painted the metallic. But what I've decided to do with this one, rather than throw a bunch of coats and get overspray and everything in this area and then try to mask off and paint it, I've decided to go ahead and paint the metallic first. So what I've done is I've sprayed a layer of Mr. Hobby GX2 gloss black, so you can see I got a real nice shiny gloss, and so I'm going to have minimal layers back here, so I'm going to have a nice smooth, nice metallic finish, and then once I get that painted, I'll mask it off, paint the rest of the plane. So how I'm going to tackle this is I've been looking at a lot of reference pictures. I think what I'm going to do, if you can see the top here, I'm probably going to spray this a gunmetal or a dark aluminum, and then come back and hit some spots with aluminum to kind of, if you can see, it's kind of got some bright spots along here. There is like a different shade right here, so I may leave that dark aluminum and mask that off after I spray the dark aluminum, and then just kind of create those different shades on the different panels. Now on the bottom, I'll probably do the same thing, but I'm going to work with the paints and see if I can recreate some of this tonal variation with my base layer with these three colors, and then I can come back and use some Tamiya clear colors like clear orange and smoke, and kind of play with it and see if I can replicate this. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to get to painting. I'm going to put on my base layers, and then we'll come back and look at and see how it looks at that point. Okay, here is the finished metallics, and I went ahead and I painted these a few days ago, the engine nozzles, and I kind of messed around and played with it. And usually when I do metallics like this, it's just a matter of what feels right. You know, there's no set method typically that I use for stuff like this. I just kind of play around with different shades of metallics and some masking fluid and some clear colors. The actual grungy part, I used a little bit of Ushi van der Rosten powder and some pigments. I think it was AK engine grime or something pigment to kind of dirty that up. But I've got those dry fitted in. And the top, I tried to kind of replicate the picture that I have here. It's kind of like a dark, I think these are titanium. This is like titanium, but I tried to make it a little dark and then put in a little bit of lighter, like scratches, like, I don't know, it got scratched up or something. And then on the bottom, if I can turn this around without breaking anything, I got a lot of varying tones. I used the three metallic shades that I had shown you earlier. I kind of then went in, and I don't have too many good pictures of the bottom of this plane other than this one. So I just used some other reference pics and kind of made this discoloration right here. I'm not really sure what causes that, but I see them in a lot of photographs of the F-15. So that's what she looks like. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to let this cure probably for today. Then I'll take my masking tape, my Tamiya tape, and mask off all the areas that are going to remain metallic. Then I can go ahead and prime it and start with the gray colors for the rest of the plane, and we should be good to go. All right, I've kind of jumped ahead, as you can see, since we last saw each other. I masked off all the metallic areas. Hopefully those are okay underneath my tape. I went ahead and black based it, primed it with Mr. Servicer Black, and did a marbling layer in white, and then I painted it with FS36251, which I believe is Aggressor Gray. Either that one is or the darker color. But for some reason, I thought it was light gold gray, and I started painting it, and it didn't seem right. So I double checked, and sure enough, it's supposed to be this color here, which there really isn't that much of a difference. But I did change it up, and like I said, I kind of got on a roll. So anyway, I've got it on the base coat down, and now I want to paint the camouflage color, and I believe that is FS36176. Now the owner told me it's 36175, and color is one of those weird things, and I may do a video on my opinion of color and all that stuff. But this paper shows 36176. What I've done is I've kind of added a little bit of blue to this because this looks kind of blue. But again, this is a photograph. It's out in the sunlight, different lighting conditions, all that jazz. So I'm left up to interpret the color. So I'm just going with this, and I just add a little bit of blue. So it's kind of up to my interpretation, I guess. But one of the issues that I ran into is the decals that they gave me are a little dark. So you've got the tail letters and numbers here, and they're in such a dark gray color. And from what I understand, the guys that painted this plane, what they did is they had the base coat down, and then they would mask off the tail colors, and then they would spray the dark camouflage color over that and peel it up. So the letters, there's going to be camouflage here. So these letters should actually be the color underneath. And as you can see, and I've done a test sample, and that's not going to look good. And that's one of the distinguishing, features on the plane. And, this guy is, worked on it all the time, and I'd hate to send him a model with that, I just wouldn't feel happy with it. So what I've done is I've went ahead and made masks for the tail letters and numbers. I still have to add the A and B, but my Cricut won't cut that fine, so I'll have to figure out something else for that. But I've masked these areas off, as you can see there. And another thing that I've done is up here, I ended up making like where they put the crew name and everything. I ended up masking that as well because that's another distinguishing feature on this plane. And again, the color is like this dark color. And since the guy's name's going to be on the other side, that's also going to be kind of an important part of the paint scheme. I'm also going to try to mask off the star and bar that goes on here and get that taken care of, because you know, that's, you know, just one of those prominent things. I think the darker insignias that go over this aggressor gray that aren't on the dark camouflage, I think those decals will be fine. And so we'll I think I'll be good with just doing this masking part with these letters and this stuff up here. I think I'll be okay. So I'm going to get on with that and get the masking. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do the camouflage. Normally I freehand, but you know, if it was my model, I'd probably freehand it, but I may want to do a mask of some sort, just because this is going to this guy, and I think he's been waiting a while to get this plane done right, so I want to do it right for him. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out how I'm going to do that. Spray the dark color camouflage, and then I'll catch you then. All right, we are on the downhill slide. One thing that I haven't mentioned earlier, well, I might have mentioned it, that I had to glue the canopy on because I don't know what it was, the front part fits into the fuselage right here, and in order to, there was kind of a gap right here, so I had to push it in, and I don't know if I pushed it too far, but the canopy looks like it's like I could use a little bit more distance between the fuselage and the cockpit section. I don't know how else I could have done it other than just leave a bigger gap and try to fill it in. But you can see the canopy there's like a little bit of a lip. I don't like it, but you know, there's not a whole lot else I could do once that was glued down. And I don't know, it's just one of those things. But I got it to fit pretty well everywhere else. It's just that little spot right there. But anyway, I've begun painting the camouflage pattern, as you can see. And I think the color is matching real well. If you can look at the pictures. One thing that I normally do is I like to freehand my camouflage. It's just quicker. But with this one, if you'll look, it kind of has a soft edge, but it's real fine. And when you reduce it down to this scale, freehanding it wasn't going to look right. So how I'm solving that is I take this Aura mask, and this is sometimes what I use to put in my Cricut. It's like a vinyl masking film. It's slightly tacky, but it doesn't really stick real well. What I found is if you put it on curved surfaces, it tends to lift up, but this is perfect for this task. So kind of what I do, let me kind of adjust the camera and show you how I'm doing this. All right. What I'm trying to do is replicate the camouflage pattern that was on this plane as accurately as possible. So what I'll do is I'll peel off one of these pieces of vinyl and I'll stick it where the camouflage is going to go. And if you can see, I broke off one of the little pointy things up here. Apparently that's a counterbalance to this one, I guess, is what the future owner of this plane told me. So I've got my reference picks here. Now what I do is I take a marker. If I can get everything lined up. Okay, and it looks like it's kind of hard to tell from this photo. So it looks like it basically comes to maybe here, right up here. So I come in and I start just kind of rough drawing where this camouflage pattern's going to be. Sorry if my head gets in the way. My dog barking at something. Quiet, Barbie. So I kind of draw in that pattern. Now what I'll do is I will lift this off. Set this aside. I'm going to put it on another sheet. So basically, and this is, you know, it's not thick, but it's you know, a little bit thicker than Tamiya tape. So I'll put this on another sheet. And I'll come in and I'm just cutting out the pattern. Okay, and then I lift both of them up. As you can see, it doesn't stick real well. It doesn't really stick to each other very well. Now what I'll do is I will take this, take my plane, and then I will position this on here. I may need to cut a little bit off the edge so I can get it a little bit closer. You can see how easily that lifts up. How far does that go down? Not very far. Let's cut a little bit more off here. Now, there's a little bit of a thickness here. Now what I'm going to do is I'll take my airbrush and I'll spray in my darker camouflage color at a direction like this coming in this direction, and you know, I don't want to spray in towards the where it's so basically I want to spray into the area from outside, from like at an angle, and that way that's going to give me that subtle soft edge on my camo pattern. And that's how I do it. And then once I get all my camo down, then I'm going to come along with a little bit lighter shade of this darker color, and I'm just going to go in and kind of shade some of this just to give it a little variation, because it is kind of flat how it sits. So I'm going to get on with that, and this will probably be the last of this video. I'm hoping to do a video on making the base. I've done a couple of them with concrete before, but I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it yet. I'm still working on that in my head. So I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.